For over 200 years, we have chased the sky. Gravity has tested us, but it has never defeated us. You're listening to Float on Air. Lift off, float on.
Okay, we are live on. This is episode 4 of Float on Air. It is February 18th, 2026, and you will notice that we are hosting this on a new platform. So I've joked in every episode we've done so far that we're going to try to get like 1% better every week. So by, our first year in, we have a polished, excellent show. Well, we realized as part of that, one, doing video is much more interesting to watch because as we're talking about historical context and news stories and things that we're building modern day with Float, we can actually share, examples of it to the best of our ability with screen sharing and modern technology, which is really nice. Also, we were doing them as live streams before, and here's the thing. We have attracted no real following yet. And so we were like...
And my mother-in-law joined.
That's right. We had a couple family members. So what we're going to do is do more of an evergreen style show that will live on our YouTube channel for people to check out at their own viewing pleasure. And we will also be doing live stream, content in the future. But we are very realistic about who we are and what we're doing here. And so, we thought it was a better fit. But as we lead into that, though, for this week, guys, how are you? Nick, Ryan, what's going on?
I'm good.
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Any big personal life updates before we jump in?
Well, I think last time on our episode, I was knee-deep in TEDx speaker interviews, still knee-deep in TEDx speaker interviews. So that's going to be a theme running through to the end of the month, but some really fascinating conversations we're having with people based in Central Florida and beyond.
Are you able to share any interesting ones that are coming up or you're aware of, or are you guys kind of not able to do that ahead of time?
Well, I've got to be careful, but some of the very best TEDx talks are ones which make you think about everyday things or concepts in a slightly different way. And just to say that we have a number that will be doing that on things that you live with every single day of your life. Okay,
awesome. I like the foreshadowing. Ryan, what's going on your end?
I mean, I'm not interviewing TEDx speakers, but we are interviewing aerospace engineers and lots of investor meetings and DoD follow-ups and so lots of
DOW, please.
DoW follow-ups. So a lot of talking to engineers, and we're getting ready to open up our first official headquarters in Southern California. Engineers are flying in and relocating, so the office will be opening up officially March 9th, and we will be up and running. So,
yeah,
it's exciting.
We will have content. We'll have content around that too, so people keep an eye out for that. I was thinking, I think it was yesterday when I was getting ready in the morning, I was thinking just about this float adventure that we're going on, and I was thinking about the saying, when people are like, "Oh, it's not that hard, it's not rocket science," and I was like, "We're pretty close."
Pretty close.
Like it's literally not rocket science, but man, we really decided to go after something that's not not so far off. So I was thinking about that and thought it was kind of funny. Anyway, so last week as we do kind of our historical journey of aerospace and airships, we got up to what we left off on Alberto Santos-Dumont was kind of you started introducing him, Nick. So I will let Professor Nick take over here to dive into the history piece, and we'll kind of go from there. Where are we on the timeline?
So we are at the very end of the 1800s, effectively. Alberto Santos-Dumont was a figure who kind of straddled the turn of the century. And I think he's a fascinating figure in many, many ways. And I think there are some overlaps with Float as well. He was a pioneer doing, treading completely new ground, but also standing on the shoulders of people who'd gone before. I also think he's interesting because he is very much sort of, although he was Brazilian, he sums up a certain flair of the fin de siècle in Paris. He would do his crazy aerial adventures, then he'd go for dinner at Maxim's, and he had a special dining set created with elevated chairs, so he could get used to dining at high altitude and all that sort of thing. But
just to show everybody what we're talking about here, look at this guy.
A style icon. He became one of the most famous men in the world, and we will talk about his link to wristwatches and timepieces later in the episode. I can see you've got the tab ready to go there.
Oh, that's right. I need to hide these. These are supposed to be
hidden. So he created a dining experience of like an elevated table and chair.
That's it. So he had money to spend.
Yeah.
He came from a very wealthy family. His father was a coffee magnate in Brazil. And so he grew up in a wealthy household. He was able to I guess, indulge his fantasies to a certain extent. And from a young age, he was absolutely captivated by both engineering and machinery and all the stuff that was going on in his father's his father's coffee plantation. And he was also fascinated with flight. He'd make little balloons and that sort of thing. And there's a game that he and his friends used to play called Pigeon Flies. Now, tell me what you think. I think this sounds like a drinking game, but they would basically sit around in a circle. They'd have their fingers up, and then whenever someone would call things out, so they would say pigeon flies, and they'd have to go like that to indicate that it could fly. Crow flies or whatever. And then someone would say dog flies, and they'd have to put their fingers down. And whenever someone said man flies, Alberto would always hold his finger up as like a gesture of saying, no, we will fly one day. We absolutely will fly. Even though his friends thought he was a bit
Definitely a drinking game.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
I haven't played it yet, but I think that would work very, very well.
I want to show you guys really quick the elevated dining experience. This is amazing. We should bring this back.
It's so gimmicky. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, can we set this up? Can we at Float? Can we set this up?
Float air bar / restaurant.
Yeah,
that's how people would eat.
This is fantastic.
All right.
But for Alberto, he in 1891 ended up moving to Paris. His father had an illness, an accident, and had to go to Paris for treatment. And he found a few things there that he was really interested in. One was cars. He was the owner of one of the first cars in Paris. It was a Peugeot that he would drive around. But he became particularly fascinated with flight. That was what he wanted to do. There was an attempted balloon flight to the North Pole. It ended in tragedy. It didn't end very well, but it made Alberto realize that when he found out the cost of this, that it wasn't as expensive as he initially thought. So he had a small balloon built for him, and I wonder if I can.
I have a picture of that. I do have a picture of that. I have, or if you want to pull it up too, that's just fine.
No, go ahead. You share your screen.
I would say, well, I have the car first to show everybody. So this was, from what I could find, it was the first car in Brazil. I think you just said that. Did you say that, or one of the?
It would have been. He certainly owned one of the first cars in Paris.
Maybe that's what it was. Oh, it's because he's Brazilian.
Of the 1800s.
Oh man, so many people who are aficionados are just scratching their head at me. Okay, so hang on. That is the car, and then I have a picture of the balloon as well, which is pretty crazy. Give me 1 second here. It looked like this. This is the one you were talking about? Yeah.
That's exactly
there we go.
And there's a few things about that balloon which I find incredible. If you see how short the basket is, and how much of his upper body is sticking up there, and he was a short guy. So I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want to be in an aircraft where so much of me was exposed to the
I think
air.
there's some safety
Um,
concerns there, isn't there? No harness or anything.
just a bit. But even though that basket was so small, he was able to pack the most incredible lunch that I think must have been ever eaten in the air. And I've got a list of what he ate. He had hard-boiled eggs, cold roast beef, cold roast chicken, cheese, ice cream, fruit, cake, champagne, coffee, and chartreuse.
All in this?
Yes. And he
What in the
flew for
world? Is that
2
what this
hours.
is? Is that what that's what this is right
I
here?
think
Probably.
that is probably sand. That's
Oh,
probably
okay. That's
balanced
how he's
sand.
planning getting down or
I'm getting like
balancing. Yeah.
Epcot
Okay.
Center vibes here.
Yes. Yes, Chef de
Yeah.
France or whatever the restaurant is.
See, everything we're planning on doing feels so much less crazy to me when I see these people. Like it's like we have
Yeah,
computers.
What are you worrying about?
That's amazing.
But although he enjoyed the ballooning, it goes back to I think what we were talking about in the previous episode that you can go up, you drift with the wind, and you eventually go back down. And he wanted to have something that was useful that he could actually fly, and he again came up against the same problem that all the other aviation pioneers were coming up against in finding a power plant, a method of propulsion that was light enough but also powerful enough to actually move it. And he, being a motoring enthusiast, realized that the little petrol engine on his motorized tricycle might just be about right. But he was concerned about vibrations. So he tested this by breaking into a park at night, getting one of his servants to rig this tricycle up on ropes between two trees so it was kind of suspended in the air, and he got on it and turned it on and realized that there were hardly any vibrations at all when it was off the
Huh.
ground, and that this would therefore work. I don't know whether this is the same approach that you guys are going to take to testing your engines. Maybe I'm not sure, but it certainly worked for Alberto. Um, and he duly built his first airship, which is kind of a weird looking, very thin sausage shape with a basket dangling
I,
quite low.
I think we're just gonna send Bo up and he'll test it.
That's right.
He'll tell us if it's vibrating or not.
Yeah. Exactly. Is it so? I think I have the pictures of this one too, Nick. I just want to make sure I'm showing the right one. So, from my understanding, this was the engine that he was testing. And then when he did flight, it was this? Or is this further down the line?
Other ones. That's one of his later ones. If
Oh,
you
got it.
search
Okay.
for Alberto Santos-Dumont #1.
That's okay. We'll show this one later. Anyway, sorry to mean to cut you off.
I've got it.
You got it? Okay, yeah, let's see it.
Brilliant.
There we go. So that's Alberto Santos-Dumont's
And
Whoa.
airship.
remind us, Nick, what year was this?
Oh, now you're asking. When was that? I think it's 1901.
Wow.
So right around the
Turn of the century.
basically.
So the airplane with the Wright brothers has not happened yet.
Not yet, no. Not yet. They're a few years off, and we will actually see later in the episode that Santos Dumont it's 1898. Pardon me, #1. So even further before the Wright
Wow.
brothers. But Santos Dumont does go into heavier than air, and there is a big controversy at the time and even to this day about whether he beat the Wright brothers. Spoiler alert: he didn't beat the Wright brothers, but he was a very, very different personality to both of them. But this this airship, it flew after he tested it. It wasn't the best airship in the world, and the first time he did try and take off, he ended up stuck in some trees, and he did manage to take off. But you can see how it's long and thin, and he realized that as he went up, the gas was leaking or contracting, and so it ended up sort of becoming a V shape, and it started plummeting towards the ground, and he was falling from over 1,000 feet, not for the first time staring death in the face, but he noticed that there were these boys in the park that he was heading towards who were flying kites, and he realized that if he could get them to grab the ropes of this airship and run into the wind, it would act like a kite, and he was able to shout down to them, and they understood what he meant, and they grabbed the ropes, and he was able to kite out and survive. And he still, so again, almost dying. Again, not for the first time, but he typically didn't take any notice of the fact that he nearly died. He was absolutely elated and went to Maxim's for dinner to celebrate. And then he was working on his second airship, which was basically quite similar to number one, but it had an internal ballonet, which meant that it wouldn't lose its shape in the way that the first one did.
Can I pause here and ask some questions here? Because this guy is an enthusiast, clearly. Where does he get his money? Is he just like independently wealthy? Did he have an investor? Like,
He's independent.
there it is. Okay.
Yeah, I know. How else would you? Yeah, how else would you be able to be so eccentric?
This is
Such
bored rich people. Got it. This is
by this time, I think his father had died, and he had inherited a massive chunk of the coffee fortune, basically. So
brilliant.
he was able, all through his career as an aviator, to fund his own experiments. He didn't need outside investors. He just did what he wanted, but he had no formal engineering training. He effectively learnt by instinct and iteration. And actually, this is what happened with his next airships. The He realized number two had the same issues with the long, thin hull, so he did number three, which was shorter and fatter. So it was more stable. It didn't lose gas, and it worked. It worked quite well. But what really took Alberto from being a bit of a playboy, a dilettante, and turned him into, at the time, a global celebrity. Like everyone who read any paper in the world at the turn of the century would have heard of him, was a particular challenge that he responded to. And the history of aviation is full of these things. Wealthy people who want to advance aviation put their own money up and issue a challenge to people. And a guy called Henry Deutsch put up 100,000 francs, and his challenge was the money would be won by the pilot of any aircraft that could take off from St. Cloud, where the Paris Aero Club was, in the suburbs of Paris, fly around the Eiffel Tower and land back again at that location, and do that in 30 minutes or less. And to achieve that, you would have to build a craft that was able to fly against the wind effectively, and to be able to be fully controlled. And Alberto basically thought, well, that's it. That's what I've got to do. Even though he was very concerned about the 30-minute stipulation, and he was also concerned that you would have to tell the judges 24 hours in advance if you were going to have a crack at this prize. And he thought, well, I can look at the weather on one day, tell them 24 hours I'm going to have a go at it, and the weather could have completely changed. But he still saw that despite those flaws, it was the best way to promote him, to promote aviation, and to prove that his airships were the best in development. So he built.
I have a couple things too, Nick. No, you're good. I cut you off. I was just gonna take a quick pause, and I think I said this last week, but these guys would have loved Jackass. Like, couldn't you just see? I like this guy to me is just like independently wealthy Johnny Knoxville of the turn of the century. That's what it reminds me of. I'm just like, because I cannot imagine basically inheriting a fortune and this is what you decide to do with it in terms of like the risk reward profile. Like I from a enthusiast of flying things perspective, I totally get it. It's like, this is awesome. We're going to push it forward. I'm going to be a pioneer. But from a self-preservation perspective, it is like so incredibly like outside of the box, and it just blows my mind every single time.
And the guy was absolutely fearless as well, totally fearless. He was a very interesting character, but he never once showed any fear. And it's almost like he had these near-death experiences, and he just thought, "Oh, right, interesting. I'll note this for next time. I'll note that for
What
next time."
what was the prize amount?
100,000
What
francs.
would that equivalent be in today's money?
That is a good question, but it is a significant amount of
I'll
money.
look it
But
up.
I want to know, like, with inflation from the turn of the century, the last century, the century before last, how much would that be? Are we talking like $1 million? Are we talking $10 million? Be curious.
Let me
So what
see.
I'm getting at is, what would today's modern day equivalent of that be? Like, would we say like you have to pick up 10,000 pounds and you have to take it across the desert and back in an hour or something?
The only thing I can think of is, and I think I said this on a different episode too, was, and I'm looking up what it would be worth today, but it's like it would have to be some new modality of travel though, because I can perceive us doing a competition lifting something and carrying it across the desert or something like that, but to be as unknown and as dangerous, it would have to be like someone invented teleportation and I'm like the first person to try it, or like maybe space travel would be the closest thing I could think
Okay.
of. Like you
I
need to fly to the moon and back, but you have to make your own rocket though.
Wasn't there thinking back sort of maybe early days of SpaceX, wasn't there a prize for someone a private company who could put something into
Orbit?
orbit and then put it back again?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Put it back. Yeah, I can't remember what it was. Is it the Mercury Prize? Or that's a music thing, isn't it? The Mercury Prize.
So, according to Perplexity, it's estimated to be about 500,000 today.
Okay.
So, I mean, a lot of money, but if you're already independently wealthy, though, I feel like that's not probably moving the needle that far. I don't know. Maybe it is. So, 500,000 then to the buying power is so much stronger. So,
Well, I think for Alberto, it was mostly the honor.
it's not the money. Yeah, that's why I love this guy. He doesn't need the money. This guy's Batman or Iron Man, only he just wants to fly and put himself into these situations. That would be the thing I could think of today. It would be like, okay, you have an unlimited budget. You need to build your own rocket and get to the moon and back in less than, 3 months or something like that. Like, insane.
And the risk to life as well. I mean, half a million. Would I risk my life for that? Probably not, to be honest with you.
No.
Unless, like Alberto, it was the honor and the point meant so much to me that it had to be proved, regardless of whether it's 500,000 or 5 million.
That's true. We're still talking about him 100 years later. How much is that worth?
Yeah, exactly. But he built a whole series of airships to try and win this prize, and he had his first attempt in the number 5 in July 1901. He gave his 24 hours notice, and his flight started pretty well, but he had a tailwind out, and that of course means a headwind coming back, and he just couldn't make enough headway, and then his engine failed, and he ended up at random Paris society. He ended up stranded in the chestnut tree belonging to the Countess Rothschild, and she sent him up a bottle of champagne whilst her servants got ladders and rescued him.
Some hospitality right there.
Yeah, exactly. He tried it. He tried it again a little while later, and again had a pretty good a good attempt. He just got to the Eiffel Tower in just 9 minutes, and rounding it, he thought, "Oh, I'm going to do quite well." But and I don't know if you've been to Paris, but the Eiffel Tower is such an iconic structure. It makes me feel really strange to think that these airships whizzing round really close to this
Yeah.
thing. And he got into trouble just as he had rounded the tower. He had basically he was losing gas, and the wires that held up the basket then became entangled in his motor, and he thought, "Oh crikey, he's losing gas. He can't afford these wires to snap because that's it. The whole thing is going to fall down. He's going to die." And then he started realizing that he was effectively falling out of the sky. In the way he saw it, very close to hitting the Eiffel Tower. So that would have been, we'd remember him for very different reasons. If he'd hit the Eiffel Tower and his airship had blown up, he'd be the crazy guy who potentially destroyed the Eiffel Tower. But he ended up landing on the Trocadero Hotel. The envelope burst somehow, and I don't understand how. It didn't explode. It just burst, and the hydrogen dissipated. But he's stuck in the long keel of his airship, balancing against this hotel, and he had to be rescued by the fire department in their long ladders.
Oh, they were
But
probably so pissed.
well, yes, they were like, get the call, like, we have to do what now? But it goes to this guy that evening he was in his workshop designing number 6. He was designing his next airship and planning for his next attempt at taking the prize. And it was in October. He took off 19th of October. He took off in his number 6 airship. He rounded the Eiffel Tower, and he landed with 30 seconds left on the clock. And he he wasn't immediately declared the winner of the prize. There was this very strange kind of, and to us kind of slightly esoteric, back and forth between him and the judges about what counted as a landing and all that sort of thing. And it became a global controversy. Like, papers all around the world printed details of the disagreement, and the Paris Aero Club committee, when they met, there was like, it was a matter of global interest and what the outcome was. And in the end, they had they decided he had won. He had technically met the terms of their challenge, and that made him one of the most famous people in the entire world. Bo, do you
He
want to
got
bring
paid
up
out.
the
So he
image
got
of
so
him turning round the Eiffel Tower? Because it's
yes.
very cool.
Yeah, let me find it. So he got paid out.
He did. He got. It was actually 125,000 francs because it kind of increased every year. It wasn't claimed. He gave 75,000 to the poor of Paris.
Nice.
Kind of generic poor of Paris. I don't know how he classified that, and he
It
gave
was
the rest
just
to his engineers.
his cousin Vinny, the poor of Paris.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, I think this is probably the image you're talking about. Yeah, look at this thing.
Wow.
That looks very close. Way too close.
It does. It does.
I can't even see him.
It's so wild to
I
think
guess
that
he's
somebody's
there.
on that thing.
Or there.
That's him there at the front.
He's
where-
here.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, and then you got the engine in the sort of.
Can you imagine if you're in the Eiffel Tower or on the Eiffel Tower and you see that thing coming by?
Yeah, absolutely. And there would be, this was a massive deal in Paris. There were thousands and thousands of people gathered to watch him try this.
I just feel like we don't get modern day spec. All right, technical difficulties, but we're back. Ignore the headphones. You do not see anything, and we're back to rolling. Yeah, exactly. All right, Nick, where were we? We were covering the award that Alberto Santos-Dumont won because of the Eiffel Tower flight, which, by the way, was about $500,000 in today's money.
That's it. So yeah, he won. He was already quite well known in Parisian society, but became the darling of the city. Effectively, everyone wanted him at their dinner parties, and he was always very dapper. He was always very well dressed. But one of his friends was the jeweler Louis Cartier, and Cartier had noticed, or Alberto had said to him, that when he's up in his airship, his hands are busy. He couldn't check the time. He felt it very difficult, or found it difficult to reach into his pocket, pull out his pocket watch, and check the time there. So Cartier heard this, went away, and created the first ever wristwatch, which he named the Santos in honor of Alberto. And it's still a model that Cartier sells to this day.
Yeah, they are sweet.
The invention of the wristwatch is directly in correlation to airships.
Exactly.
That's right.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Bo, I feel like we need a float air wristwatch now. Just
Now
it
we're
is
talking. If we do
commemorative timepiece.
if we do a float collab with Cartier and we do a float Santos, I might make it out of like aerospace carbon or something. I will die a happy man. Other companies have done this, not specifically with Cartier, but Coinbase, Ryan, did a Seiko. I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
that or not. Yeah, hang
we could one up them and do a Casio.
on. That's right.
Well, you could bring the concept into the 21st century and just do a float Apple Watch face.
That's true. We could accomplish that a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a branding portal on Apple. We could just order that right now.
This was the Coinbase one that they did for their, I don't know, it was like 2025 employees or something like that.
I kind of
Okay.
like that. That's
Just
got a slight
giving you
flavor.
some ideas for Christmas of the future for all of us and
It doesn't even
employees
say
of Float.
it doesn't say Bitcoin on it though. You think it would have something related to
Yeah.
cryptocurrency on it?
Yeah, you would think.
Doesn't miss.
But yeah, no, it's crazy that the original wristwatch literally has its roots in airships. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I did know that. That was the only thing I knew about Santos-Dumont.
I had no idea.
He has a few other legacies as well. But diving back into his life, all the controversy around the prize kind of soured him a little bit about Paris. And one of the other things that is a constant in his life is he's quite peripatetic. He's always moving from place to place. And it seems like he often finds it difficult to settle. So he goes to Monaco, and he works with the Prince Albert of Monaco, who's a big aviation enthusiast. But that's not really a success. He crashes in the Mediterranean in his number 6 and almost dies. So he wasn't too happy about that.
She does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always crashing. What's another one? And then he drifts over to the United States. He has his airship number 7, which he's sort of exhibiting there. I said that there were legacies that he had that have passed down to this day. Cartier watches one. Maybe a more significant one is that he coined the word airport. He's the first person to really use that word, and he was talking about what New York might be in the future, an airport. He met Thomas Edison. He went to England, but nothing was really successful for him. and in the end, he ended up just going back to Paris. But back in Paris, he designed his airship number 9, which was really his most probably famous airship, I'd say, because that's the one where some of the great legends were born. Like he would launch this little airship number 9 from his hangar, and he would fly to his favorite restaurant. He would moor it up against a lamppost. He would drop down, and he would go off and have a drink. And there were lots of people who experienced him in that way of, oh look, it's Alberto Santos-Dumont coming for a drink again. And it's in this airship that as he would claim, because he probably didn't know any different, that both the first child flew and the first female flew. And the first child was a kid at this children's fete where Alberto was flying his airship, and one of them basically insisted on flying with him, and it was an American boy actually called Clarkson, apparently the first child to fly, and then a few days later, another American, an heiress called Aida D'Acosta, who had been seeing Alberto's experience with his airships, again came up to him and insisted on being learnt to fly, on being taught to fly, and he did. He taught her like half an hour. This is how you control it. This is how you go up and down, and then off you go. So she 30 minutes of instruction, and then off she went. She flew herself, but unfortunately, it's probably not the case that they were the first child and the first woman. You have to go back. You go back a year before then to 1902. This was 1903, and it was a British airship pioneer called Stanley Spencer who invented the concept of airship advertising. Maybe we'll look at him in a later episode. But his wife was the first to pilot an airship, and his 6-month-old daughter was the first child to fly. But it's a good story with Alberto.
Yeah, I'm going to choose to believe that it was him just because I want to, not because I'm looking for historical accuracy.
Actually, with Aida D'Acosta, because she came from like polite society, and when her parents found out that she had actually flown, they were utterly horrified because that's not what women did in those days. And she was not allowed to talk about it and she didn't talk about it for decades until until her husband, who was weirdly Charles Lindbergh's lawyer and was involved in the US in aviation circles, and in 1930 was talking about the US Navy airship program, and this friend of her husband's was basically banging on about airships, and she said, "Well, I know a little bit about airship. I'm the first female to fly in anything," and that was the first time her husband had ever heard of it.
Could you imagine having to keep that a secret, and then all of a sudden you're just like, all right, I'm putting it out there, and you're like, yeah, no, actually, I've flown one of these. Sorry. What? Like, what? They're playing two truths and a lie, and she's like, oh, I flew an airship, and I'm allergic to peanuts.
Funny.
Crazy.
Then, so 1903 is obviously a massive year for aviation because on the 17th of December, the Wright brothers flew.
Wait, 1903? No?
They're in 1903, that's it.
Oh, I said 1993. I was like, what?
Oh, no. 90 years.
Jumping into the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is that although we look back on that flight and the Wright brothers' first flight, and it stands out as a massive seminal moment, and it was, they were working quite quietly, so not very many people knew about this, and it took quite a while for the details to really become known around the world. And it was in the following year, so sorry, we had to edit that out. It's not the following year. it's at this time that Alberto decided to move into heavier than air flight, and he became the first European to fly. And in 1906, he became the first European to fly. And there is still debate about who was first. It's obvious that that the Wright brothers beat Alberto by some time, but because the manner in which they did it, and because Alberto was already such a famous person, the sort of the debate and the disagreement and the controversy kind of rumbles on. And because Alberto is such a huge hero in Brazil, there are still Brazilians who like to claim the first manned, powered, controlled heavier than air flight.
That sounds like a good place. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, we're kind of approaching, I guess, the end, and it's interesting to bring the Wright brothers on at this stage because their approach to aviation was totally different to Alberto's. So Alberto would go on to design a number of other aeroplanes, one of which was actually very successful, and he, maybe because he's already very wealthy and obviously eccentric, he didn't patent his designs, he didn't sell them, he wasn't looking to make money from them, and he's obviously a very romantic figure, whereas the Wright brothers were businessmen. They were not particularly romantic, and they had a very different, hard-nosed attitude to aviation to Alberto, and that kind of affected him. And as World War One came about, and aeroplanes and airships and balloons were used as weapons of war, Alberto felt tremendous guilt that he had helped contribute to the development of something that was going on to cause people to die. And he kind of fell into a depression that he never really came out of. He had a crash in one of his airplanes in 1910. He never flew after that. He would go back and forth from France to Brazil, back to France, back to Brazil, and he never really sort of grabbed onto anything again. And there was a very sad moment where, because he was still a well-known figure in Brazil, and on one of his like many voyages, he was returning to Rio de Janeiro in an ocean liner, and there were some flying boats full of some top scientists who were like, "Oh, we're going to fly out to greet Alberto," and one of these boats nearly crashed into the other, and the one making evasive action ended up crashing into the bay and killing the occupants. And Alberto witnessed this, and it kind of pushed him closer and closer to breaking point. But the crash of the R100, the British airship R101 in 1930, also affected him because he felt a level of responsibility for the loss of lives on that airship.
Wow.
But the end, it is a very sad ending. It came in 1932, and he was staying near Sao Paulo in Brazil, and there was a kind of a local revolution or a civil war that was running at that time, raging at that time, and aeroplanes flew over his hotel and dropped bombs in the mountains nearby, and he saw and heard this, and tragically he ended up taking his own life through the compounded element of guilt and responsibility.
That is tragic.
Is
now
very, very sad.
Now I'm extremely bummed.
I mean, we were doing really good right up until that point. Like the last.
Oh.
I know. But I don't. I think the way to hold him in your mind is as the guy who is in his airship, flying from his apartment to his favorite restaurant, going in for a drink, and being the toast of fin de siècle Paris. That's how I like to remember him.
It seems a proper romanticization of it. Yep.
Exactly. And remember the wristwatch, the airport in Rio that's named after him, And he is still a massive hero in Brazil. They although he spent a lot of time in Paris, they definitely claimed him back as one of their own.
Yeah. Wow. All right, guys. I apologize. I actually need to jump. I will let you guys continue on into the modern airship latest news. So
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for jumping on, Ryan.
Take care,
Appreciate it
Ryan.
as always.
I'll see you guys on the next one.
All right, Nick, we'll keep it rolling here on our side. That is a tragic end to a wildly interesting character. Holy smokes.
His autobiography, which is called My Airships, is a fantastic book. He's a great writer, and he really he brings to life what it was like to risk your lives in these funny little aircraft. Well worth a read.
I will check it out. I am an avid reader, and I do like a good biography. Is it a biography or an autobiography?
It's an autobiography.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So he finishes it before he starts building aeroplanes, if I remember correctly. So you get the airships, you get the Deutsche Prize, and you get his global celebrity.
Amazing. Okay, I will check that out.
Free actually, because it's been in publication for such a long time.
Awesome. I will check that out. Let's go into the modern day now. Little smooth transition here for everybody. We only have one story this week. Let me just get it pulled up here. I thought I had it pulled up, but I guess I did not. And Nick, I'll let you take the lead on this too. This was the story with flying whales.
Sure. So Flying Whales is a French company, and they are building the LCA 60T, which is a full-scale rigid airship built for the heavy lift cargo market, and they have a number of sort of international partnerships. They've got a big partnership in Australia, but they've just announced another partnership with the Transport Corporation of India. So it speaks to the growing international interest in the capabilities of airships, particularly in the heavy lift and cargo and freight sectors. And actually, if anyone is interested, not to divert them from Float on Air, but I have an episode of my podcast where I interview Thibaut Prou, who's an engineer who's been with Flying Whales almost since the beginning.
Oh, absolutely. Everyone listening to this should check that out. Yeah, this is a good example of, I mean, this is a direct competitor to Float in terms of, use case, but seeing them win a contract with a large transportation logistics company is massive. I mean, it's just a proof of concept that there is commercial demand for this type of thing, this type of use case. And I just look at it, it's no different than if I was whatever Honda and Toyota pops up. Like we're not going to be the only airship company in the world. Now we of course hope to do it better, but to me, like, proving the concept and proving the market, which then provides a market for us to compete in, that's a huge net benefit to everybody. I mean, this is quite literally a rising tide lifts all airships types of things. And so huge props to them. That's amazing. I don't know. I couldn't see any of the details on the agreement, like if it was a certain number of ships or if they were just doing a trial run. That I was not able to see.
It's where I've seen it is presented as a collaboration. So I think it's sort of an early stage exploration of the possibilities that the Flying Whales product could give to the company.
Yeah, maybe they'll do like a custom designed craft or something specifically for their needs, something like this.
Potentially, yes. Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, that's awesome. We will keep an eye out on that. And yeah, I don't have too much more on that other than, it's a win for airships as an industry, which ultimately I'm a proponent of.
Exactly. And again, yet more evidence that, especially with cargo and heavy lift goods, that there's a lot of people looking at airships as a potential solution, particularly an environmentally friendly solution as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Amazing. Well, that's all I have for this week, Nick. Do you have anything else before we wrap up Float on Air?
No, I think that's about it from me. And the only thing to say is that looking ahead to the next episode, I think we should go for our first proper look at a genuine household name, which is Count von Zeppelin.
Yeah, let's do it. I am down for that. That is a name that I am familiar with, and I'm sure anyone who has found this show somehow is familiar with the name Zeppelin at the very least. So absolutely, we would dive into that. Well, thank you as always, Nick. Thank you to anyone who is listening to this. Thank you to Ryan for joining us, founder and CEO of Float. This is Float on Air. This is episode 4, first video episode that we have ever done in the books, and we will see you next week.
Goodbye.
You're listening to Float on Air. Lift off, float on.